Donald Trump recently made a statement about gun ownership that might sound over the top at first, but when you look at what's actually taking place right now, it starts to make a lot more sense. Last year alone, more than 3,000 Christians were killed in Nigeria. That's more than any other place in the world. And the reason this keeps happening should worry anyone in America who believes in the right to own firearms. Let me explain what's really going on and what Trump is actually saying he might do about it. Before we get into the details, I need you to do something really quick. Smash that like button right now if you care about protecting your Second Amendment rights. It only takes a second, and it makes a huge difference in getting this information out to more people who need it. Also, if you're not already subscribed to the channel, hit that subscribe button and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any future updates on your rights. Trust me, you're going to want to stay informed about this stuff. Trump is talking about cutting off all the money America sends to Nigeria and possibly even sending American soldiers to stop the mass murder of Christians that's been happening there. This isn't just empty talk. These are real actions he has the power to take. Most people have no idea that the United States sent Nigeria more than $1 billion in 2024. That amount has been going up every year since 2022, when we were sending about $600 million. That money was meant to help stabilize the country, improve healthcare, and support development projects. It wasn't supposed to support a government that sits back and does nothing while thousands of Christians are being murdered in their own country. Trump actually has the authority to stop that aid without needing Congress to approve it. He can also send troops for up to 60 days as long as he tells Congress within 48 hours. The real issue isn't whether he can do these things. The question is whether stopping the money or putting boots on the ground will actually end what has basically become a genocide that's been going on for more than 20 years. But there's something even more interesting that nobody seems to be discussing. The Nigerian government just said they would welcome help from the United States to get this situation under control. That's basically them admitting they haven't been doing anything about it up until now. So what's really allowing this mass killing to continue year after year without anyone being able to fight back? Back in 1959, Nigeria created something called the Firearms Act. If you just read it quickly, it sounds pretty reasonable. Just some basic rules about guns, right? But that's not what it actually is. That law made it almost impossible for regular Nigerian citizens to legally own or carry any kind of gun to protect themselves. You need special licenses that normal people can never get. You need approval from the police that never actually happens. The restrictions are so strict that farmers who are being attacked on their own land have absolutely no legal way to protect themselves or their families. At the same time, the Nigerian government and military have all the weapons they could possibly need. And here's the really messed up part. Illegal guns are pouring into the hands of the extremist groups who are doing all the killing. So you've got Christians who followed the law and gave up their weapons, and now they have no way to defend themselves against armed militias who couldn't care less about any Firearms Act. Does this sound familiar? Because this is exactly what people who support gun rights in America have been warning about for decades. Take guns away from good people, criminals keep theirs, and innocent people start dying. Let's talk about the real numbers here, because these aren't just statistics on a page. These are actual human beings who died while begging for help that never showed up. The conservative estimates say more than 3,000 Christians were murdered in Nigeria just last year. But the organizations actually working on the ground think the real number is way higher because so many deaths in rural villages never get reported or properly investigated. Since the year 2000, some estimates put the total number of Christians killed in Nigeria somewhere between 60,000 and 100,000 people. And this isn't just random violence either. About 70% of these killings happen to farmers and their families who are being targeted for their land and resources, with their Christian faith being used as the reason to justify the murders. The attacks follow the same pattern over and over. In some regions of Nigeria, communities have faced serious security challenges, including attacks that have displaced families and left people without protection. Many observers have expressed concern that the government response has not been sufficient to keep affected populations safe. At the same time, international financial assistance to Nigeria has continued to increase, even as the overall situation remains difficult. You may wonder why people in the United States, especially lawful gun owners, should pay attention to incidents occurring in another part of the world. The reason is that some advocates for stricter firearm regulations in the US often cite countries with highly restrictive gun laws as examples to follow. However, these situations can be complex, and critics argue that such restrictions may leave ordinary citizens without effective means to protect themselves when security systems fail. Looking at examples from different countries highlights this concern. Australia implemented a major firearm buyback program in the 1990s, and citizens there now rely entirely on law enforcement for personal protection. The United Kingdom also introduced strict handgun regulations, and crime patterns shifted in ways that some say demonstrate that determined offenders adapt regardless of the rules. Nigeria enacted strict firearm restrictions decades ago, yet many communities still struggle with safety because illegal weapons remain in circulation and enforcement is inconsistent. The broader point is that when governments limit legal access to self-defense tools without sufficiently addressing security gaps or illegal weapons, innocent people can be left vulnerable. This is often cited as one of the reasons the Second Amendment exists, not solely for sport or recreation, but as a safeguard ensuring that people retain the ability to protect themselves when needed. For many gun owners, the discussion becomes personal when they hear the argument that responsible self-defense is unnecessary or that preparedness is unreasonable. Some believe that relying entirely on emergency services may not always be enough, especially in situations where response times are limited or support systems are overwhelmed. Reflecting on the experiences of vulnerable communities abroad serves as a reminder that personal safety can depend on multiple factors, including the ability to act when help is not immediately available. They couldn't call for help because police stations were hours away, and the government had already made it crystal clear they weren't going to show up. The average time it takes for rural police in Nigeria to respond is over 3 hours. By the time any help arrives, entire families are already dead and the people who attacked them are long gone. Even in major cities in Nigeria, police response times average around 45 minutes. And that's if they even respond at all. Compare that to America, where the average police response time is 11 minutes across the country. But in rural areas here, it can take more than 30 minutes. And during that half hour, everything you love and care about can be destroyed. The hard truth is that whether you're living in Nigeria or Nebraska, when someone is breaking down your door at 2 in the morning, you are your own first responder. And the idea that you should just sit there and hope for the best has gotten more people killed than any firearm ever has. So let's bring all of this back to why Trump's warning actually matters and what it means for gun owners right here in the United States. What's happening in Nigeria right now is a preview of what happens when governments take guns away from regular people while criminals and extremists keep their weapons. Those Nigerian Christians aren't dying because they're bad people or because they chose the wrong religion. They're dying because their government took away their ability to defend themselves and then refused to protect them. And now we're sending that same government over $1 billion every year while they let the genocide continue. And the only person actually calling this out is Trump, while all his critics stay completely silent about it. But here's the part that should genuinely scare you. The same politicians who are pushing for red flag laws, limits on magazine capacity, and bans on assault weapons in America are the exact same ones who think Nigeria's gun control is reasonable and sensible. They want to create the exact same situation here where law-abiding Americans can't get firearms while criminals have illegal guns flooding into the streets. And just like what's happening in Nigeria, when the violence starts here, the government won't be there to protect you. They'll just tell you that you should have followed their laws and trusted them to keep you safe. Whether it's terrorists operating in Africa or lawmakers sitting in Washington, D.C., anyone who is trying to disarm a population is setting up a situation where innocent people are going to die while criminals run free. And that's not just an opinion. That's what the evidence shows us time and time again. What's happening in Nigeria should be a major wake-up call for every American who believes in the right to defend themselves. It doesn't matter where the threat is coming from. If someone is trying to take guns away from law-abiding citizens, the results are always the same. Innocent people lose their lives and the bad guys come out on top. The situation in Nigeria demonstrates a critical point that often gets lost in debates about gun ownership. When a government implements strict gun control laws but fails to protect its citizens and cannot stop the flow of illegal weapons to criminals and violent groups, it creates a deadly imbalance. The people who follow the rules end up defenseless, while those who have no regard for the law remain armed and dangerous. This isn't a theoretical concern. It's playing out in real time with thousands of lives being lost every single year. The connection to America is direct and undeniable. The same arguments being used to justify gun restrictions here are the same arguments that led to the situation in Nigeria. When politicians say that nobody needs certain types of firearms or that stricter background checks and licensing requirements will make everyone safer, they're making the same promises that were made to Nigerian citizens decades ago. And we can all see how that turned out. The farmers who gave up their weapons thinking the government would protect them are now being slaughtered in their homes with no way to fight back. This is why Trump's position on this issue resonates with so many gun owners in America. He's drawing a direct line between failed gun control policies in other countries and the potential consequences if similar policies are implemented here. The $1 billion in aid that keeps flowing to Nigeria despite the ongoing genocide represents a broader failure to recognize that disarming law-abiding people while failing to control criminal violence is a recipe for disaster. When Trump threatens to cut that aid or even deploy troops, he's not just reacting to the humanitarian crisis. He's making a statement about what happens when governments abandon their responsibility to protect citizens and instead focus on restricting their ability to protect themselves. If you found this information valuable, do me a favor and hit that like button right now. It helps get this critical information in front of more gun owners who need to know about these changes. And if you haven't subscribed yet, make sure you subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so you never miss an update on your rights. Share this video with every gun owner you know because this information is too important to keep to yourself. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.